Hi, my name is Sheryl Shaffer, and today this is actually my fourth virtual interview. And this is a lady I met about 4 or 5 years ago on the internet. So I'd like to introduce ShaDonna McPhaul. Which branch of the military did you serve in?
Hi, Sheryl. I served in the Air Force.
Okay, what made you go into the Air Force?
So I am from Fayetteville, North Carolina, and it is Army Town, USA. A lot of my family members were in the Army, and I just knew that I couldn't get up at 5:30 in the morning to run anywhere. And I actually had a friend that I worked with at Hardee's, and we were all sitting around talking about what we were going to do after high school. And my friend Tasha said, she was going into the Air Force, and the Air Force recruiters were coming out, and then I got a postcard from the Air Force recruiter. My stepdad, he was in the Air National Guard. He talked about the Air Force, so all of this Air Force stuff kept coming at me, so I just decided, okay, I'll go to MEPS in Raleigh. Went to MEPS, took the ASVAB, scored what I needed to score to get in, and right after high school, I graduated in June. So I left for basic training 2 days before Thanksgiving. So, that's how I got into the Air Force. And I don't have any complaints whatsoever. It was the greatest 20 years of my life.
What year did you say you went in?
I went in 1996 and I retired in 2016.
Oh, well, very good. So what was your military occupational specialty?
So I was a information manager. Ultimately, I was an admin support person. So I did a lot of IT stuff, hooking up printers, and just helping making sure people stayed on task.
Okay, very good. So what rank did you retire as?
I retired as an E6, a technical sergeant.
Okay, well, very good. And thank you for your service. So that's wonderful. And I am going to tell a little bit about the story of how we met a few years back. Somehow we connected on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or one of those, and you were actually still serving at the time. And you were stationed in Hawaii. And I told you about two things that really kind of changed your path a little bit. Can you discuss what?
Yes, absolutely. And I want to say it was Twitter that we met on. It was either Twitter or LinkedIn, because I think we just became friends on Facebook here recently. But I knew you were doing something with veterans. Veterans helping veterans. I saw that, and at the time, I had just started Most Heroes, and this was back in 2013. And my main goal for Most Heroes was to get the information out to our veterans, especially our homeless veterans, so they can get housing and, make sure they have their benefits. So I think I reached out to you because I knew you were doing in production, and that's what I always wanted to be, in production, because I wanted to get the word out. I'm like, okay, I need mass media to get this information out, because the information is the information. The process is the process. We just got to get it to the people. So I think I saw you on, I want to say Twitter. So, and I reached out to you, and you gave me your number, and you welcomed me to call you. And we talked for about 2 or 3 hours. I remember it was quite a conversation. And the two things that you told me about that I did not know at the time was, you told me about the VWise program.
Which means Veterans Women in Spirit Entrepreneurship. It's a program that's offered across the nation. They do it 4 times a year, and is to empower women veterans to get into business.
Absolutely. And I actually, when I retired in 2016, I went to VWise January 2017. So as soon as I got out, I already had that lined up, thanks to you. So I really appreciate that tidbit of information. And you told me about Google for nonprofits, with the $10,000 Google AdWords grants, which we applied for and we also received. So I thank you for that. And that's something else that like I said, I was an information manager. So it's always my job to get the right people, the right information. So anything that I know, I share, as I don't believe in hoarding information. So I thank you for that, because those two things did help me tremendously.
I'm really happy that that worked out for you, ShaDonna, because one of the things that I saw that you managed to do, which I thought was quite remarkable because you were active duty military, is that you actually did your research and started your nonprofit while you were in the military. That's not exactly easy to do. So you were able to kind of, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I made the assumption that you were able to start your nonprofit while you were in the military and use those two avenues to continue or to start up. Sorry, better word. Your nonprofit was just like what you said, was to start homeless veterans. So what, first of all, my question is, what compelled you to start it when you were in the military? What happened to you to inspire you to start a nonprofit while you were in the military, number one? And number two, how were you able to marry active duty military with starting a nonprofit at the same time?
So what inspired me to start the nonprofit? There was actually several things. The first thing, I don't know if the viewers have ever been to Hawaii. Hawaii is a beautiful state. The weather is 80 degrees year round. So there are not only homeless veterans in Hawaii, but there are homeless people in general in Hawaii. So when I got to Hawaii, I was actually waiting for my clearance and to do all of that. And some of my friends invited me to go to the homeless shelter. So that was the first thing that really opened my eyes to the homeless problem in Hawaii. So that was like right at the beginning of 2011, right at the end of 2011, because I got there in September. Fast forward to 2012, the former First Lady Michelle Obama and Dr. Jill Biden came to Hawaii with Hiring Our Heroes, and they did a job fair. And I, believe it or not, when I tell the story, people, they can't believe it. But remember, I joined the Air Force when I was 18. So I had never been to a job fair. I had no idea what a job fair was. So I went to this job fair because I'm like, oh my God, I would love to meet Dr. Biden and former First Lady Michelle Obama, to hear them speak. So, and I was kind of acting like that I was a part of it. I was the greeter, because anytime I go to an event or something, I always want to feel useful. So I was there and I was greeting people, and I took, pictures by the banner. And when I saw all of these jobs that wanted to hire our veterans, I'm like, okay, I already saw that we had the homeless people in Hawaii living under the bridges in the shelters. And I saw that these people wanted to hire veterans. So I'm like, well, why don't we just give them makeovers and help them with their resumes and help them with their applications and just marry the two. So like I said, that was right at the beginning of when I got to Hawaii. So a couple of years later, after I had my son, I had went through a very traumatic incident, which made me believe that, oh my God, homelessness can happen to me. If something doesn't, anything can happen to anyone. So I never took anything for granted. So when I got to Hawaii, there was a Hiring Our Heroes job fair that partnered with joining forces with Dr. Jill Biden and former First Lady Michelle Obama. So I wanted to meet these women to hear them speak, even though I had about 8 more years of active duty service. I'm like, I did not want to miss that opportunity. So I go to the job fair, which was held at the Officers Club, and I saw all of these companies who wanted to hire veterans. And I saw all of these veterans who needed to be hired. So I'm like, well, what if we just did makeovers for our veterans and help them with their resumes? And that's what actually Hiring Our Heroes does with the resumes. But I think that missing piece was the makeovers, the grooming. So I'm like, okay, if I can help get them groomed, then they can get a job and they can get housing. So I was just really excited about that. So at the time, like I said, I had just got to Hawaii, so I didn't do anything with that. So fast forward to 2013, after I had my son, I had an incident that happened, and it made me believe that, oh my God, Mo, this could be you. You could be a homeless veteran if you don't have money. You're no different from any other veterans that served in the seat. So I knew that I didn't want to be a homeless veteran. So I'm like, okay. And I knew that I was getting out in 2016. So this is 2013. I had about 3 years left. So I'm like, okay, Mo, your time is coming to an end, whether you like it or not. What are you going to do? So I really started to do my Operation Life After, what I wanted to do. So I knew I liked helping veterans. I knew I was good at admin stuff. And I knew I had professional people around me that could help me organize it. So my stepmother, who was an accountant, I told her what I wanted to do. she sent me a checklist of how to start a 501c3 nonprofit. And as I stated earlier, I'm admin, so I can run a checklist with the best of them. So I got my checklist and I just started going down the list and I found someone who did the paperwork for me, you know, paid the $400, got it sent off. And about 9 months later, I had the 501c3 designation. And it took that long because during that time, I don't know if you remember, that's when Congress had the big sequestration and there was just so much going on. The government had shut down. So it took a little bit to get the paperwork back and to get the nonprofit status. But I knew I still wanted to help. I knew I still wanted to go to these shelters and plan meals. And because I planned a lot of parties and I planned a lot of events for the commander, like during the commander's calls, Christmas parties. So I was like, always organizing something. So I was like, okay, well, let me organize a dinner. So our first event was November 2013. I went into a women's shelter and I was like, oh, I love steak. So every Friday I would go to this grocery store and they would do grilled steak. So it was my Friday night meal, my go-to. I'm like, well, if I like this, then maybe these ladies will like this. And that was not true. And I quickly found out just because I like something doesn't mean everybody's going to like it. So that was my first real taste of reality when it comes to giving veterans what they want. You know, first find out what it is that they want. Don't just assume because you like something that they're going to like it too, because that's not the case. So I started, like I said, going and volunteering at the shelters and just talking to veterans and then people started seeing what I was doing, and I would post the pictures on social media for the veterans who wanted to be posted. Some didn't, and that was okay. And I tell people all the time, I never want to feel like I'm exploiting veterans, because as you know, a lot of times with nonprofits, everybody wants you to show the story, show what you're doing, show the impact. And it's like a catch-22 with homeless veterans, because the last thing you want to do is feel like you're exploiting somebody and that you're kicking someone when they're down. And so a lot of the marketing at the time was of me and the heroes. Like I said, it's called Mo's Heroes. So it was the people helping the veterans and not so much the veterans, because like I said, when you're homeless, you may or may not want the world to know you're homeless until, like I said, we'll do the makeover and then they're like, hey, look at me. And that's the thing that I always wanted for Most Heroes, for a homeless veteran or a transitioning service member, for them to walk into a room and you can't tell who's who. You can't tell that they're homeless. They look just like you and I, and they're comfortable and they're talking and they're networking and they're just living the life that they wanted to live. So I was just so passionate about getting people back to the state that they wanted to be in, or the state that they wanted to be in. Because I remember there was a time where I wasn't where I wanted to be. Like, okay, I had to get back to Mo. So I was like, okay, I finally got myself back to Mo. And I'm like, okay, now I know how to get myself back. Let me assist others. And there were so many organizations and companies who helped, not just monetarily, with time. And a lot of times when you start an organization, you're not going to have the money. But what we lacked in funds, we had in manpower. And that makes a huge difference.
One thing the military teaches you is to live a life in service to others. A lot of people get out of the military, they go on with their lives. They go to college, they get married and have families, they move on, but they don't necessarily join a veteran service organization right away. And not only did you start a nonprofit, I'm assuming that somehow you also became involved in a veteran service group. But can you talk about are you a member of veteran service groups and the importance of why you joined and why you would encourage others to do the same? Because that's part of your story, is you got out and you still continue to live a life of service. And why do you do that? What do you get out of it? Why should others join veteran service organizations? And what do you get out of it?
Okay, so in Hawaii, we're in Honolulu, which everyone knows is the capital of Hawaii. So in Honolulu, there was a center called the Oahu Veteran Center, where all the veteran or services organizations would come and meet. The fourth Saturday of the month. And I got involved with that, and we started doing a Oahu Ohana veterans Thanksgiving dinner, where a lot of the different veteran services organizations came together, and we would do these fantastic, we would do breakfast and lunch for our veterans for Thanksgiving, because as I told you earlier, Thanksgiving, I went to basic training 2 days before basic training. And so that was my first time away from home. So I know the importance of those holidays. And when you're far away, you don't have anybody, you may not have people to connect with. So that first year, it was Most Heroes, VA Rep, the VFW, the DAV, and just different, it was an outpouring of community support. It was motorcycle clubs, it was Masonic organizations, it was, the VA was there. So everybody really just came together because everybody knew that there was a huge homeless population, a huge veteran population, because that's what was on the news every single day. The 5 o'clock news, there was a story about veteran homelessness. You couldn't get away from it in Hawaii. So that was one of the main reasons I wanted to start this organization, because I'm like, I knew, like, the Air Force trained me to be resourceful. So in Honolulu, there is a center called the Oahu Veteran Center that would meet the fourth Saturday of every month, where all of the veteran services organizations and some nonprofits will come together and talk about what was going on in their organization and how we can help the veterans. And Thanksgiving was coming up, so Most Heroes, and there was an organization called VA Rep, the Veterans Association of Real Estate Professionals, DAV, the VFW, and a whole host of motorcycle clubs, Masonic organizations. The VA came out, Senator Macy Hirono came out, and we put on this magnificent event for our veterans, not just homeless veterans, it was families, because we really wanted everybody to come out and fellowship. Because as you know, during the holidays, that could be a very lonely time for our veterans and even family members, especially on the island where you're so far away from everybody. And that first event, there was a family that just PCSD, and they're living in TLA. You know, they don't know anybody, they don't have any groceries. So they came out, and that year the commissary gave us gift cards. So we were able to give families commissary gift cards, and we had other door prizes, and most of all, we had each other. And we had plenty of food, but we had each other. You know, no one was alone, and it was just so phenomenal. So after that, we got a lot of media attention. Like I said, Senator Hirono was there. And it was just like, okay, Mo, what's next? What's next? So, like I said, when you're in a military community, everybody wants to do something, because they felt the pain of a lot of our homeless veterans, because like I said, a lot of times, you know, you can't take for granted that that won't be you. So after we did our Thanksgiving event, like I said, all of these organizations came out and they wanted to do more. So we started doing more of these like a hero events. We started doing clothing drives. I had bought a car. I bought a little beater car where I would let veterans get their driver's license, because what we were finding is veterans, like I said, every veteran, we all have similar issues, but we're all different. You know, everybody has a different challenge. So it's like, as the veterans was coming at us with their challenges, we was like, okay, well, this is the answer. We had a veteran who needed their driver's license, a couple of veterans actually. They had the job, but they didn't have a driver's license. So we helped them get their driver's license. They were able to get promotions. Like I said, driving golf carts, driving forklifts, being a security guard. So that just became a thing where we were like, okay, well, how may we serve you? You know, that's our tagline. So a lot of these veterans, you know, was coming to us and saying, hey, I'm having this issue, I'm having that issue. So, you know, everything is case by case, person by person. And with the network that we were establishing, you know, it wasn't just Most Heroes. Like I said, it was a whole plethora of organizations, a whole network of folks who could help. So I quickly realized, like I started going to a lot of homeless stand downs, and all the organizations would be there, similar to the job fair. But when you go to these homeless stand downs, all of the veteran services organizations are there, and you quickly find out, okay, this organization does this organization does that. So it was very important for me and my volunteers that I was working with to know who did what. So when the veteran came to us, we wouldn't send them on a wild goose chase, because a lot of times these veterans, they don't have the patience to do the wild goose chase thing. They want direct help, so we had to do a lot of warm handoffs. But at the end of the day, we wanted our veterans to get what they needed. And if they knew what organizations was serving, what resources the organizations had, it will cut out a lot of no's and a lot of discontentment, because they're like, hey, I called you, but if the organization doesn't do that, then they just don't do that. You have to find out which organizations help with housing, who help with, transportation, who helps with clothing, who helps with rent. So you just really got to do your homework to find out who does what. And so that was one of the things that we prided ourselves on, knowing who does what was in our capacity to do and what wasn't. And what we couldn't do, there were other organizations that could. And what they couldn't do, they would call, hey, Mo, do you know this? Do you know how to do this? Do you know how to get that? So, it was really a team effort. Like you said earlier in the interview, there's no I in team.
The sad story is there's a never-ending need for veterans, because sometimes they get disillusioned and they don't want to go to the VA. Yep. Or sometimes they become homeless and they like that lifestyle, for either because they're addicted to alcohol, or they're addicted to drugs, or they can't work, or they have mental health issues, whatever the issue is. But the need is never ending. So, that's one of the sad truths you kind of find out within the veteran groups. And then, volunteers are only as good as how much time they are willing to dedicate themselves, the ability to do whatever it is they're trying to do to help the veteran. Working in the nonprofit world is that you volunteer more time that you probably care to admit to helping a cause that you believe in, because the need is so great and the need never ends. That's the point that I'm trying to make. It's a continuous, because now with the military kind of being reduced in certain areas of the world and people getting out, and of course, look at the time that we're living in now with the COVID-19, and jobs are just getting harder for everybody to find. And so it's kind of a scary time. So certainly something you can talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything you said was everything that I found to be true. When I first started the organization, I didn't understand all of the things that I know now, because with experience, with time. So I know we've been following each other on social media, and that's the biggest thing that most heroes that I want us to be known for, because we don't want to reinvent a wheel. If we know the VFW is doing this, or the DAV, the VA, we share that information to get it to our the veterans' families, because I know if a veteran, and I know this because it's happened, you try to help somebody that don't know you, they're not going to be receptive. I've had somebody to give me the Heisman so many times, and I get it. I like, hey, I'm trying to help you, but to them, they don't know me, so they're not going to listen to me. So I try to get the information to the general public so they'll listen to somebody. It doesn't necessarily have to be me, but if I get the right information to the right people.
And you're absolutely right about communication is certainly the key to success, because especially if you're running a nonprofit. And we talked about Mo's Heroes for a while, and I know it's still active, but you also have a business, and I'd like for you to talk a little bit about the business, because it goes into, you were just talking about communication. So your social media marketing, so talk about your business and what you're trying to do with that, and let's communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for the opportunity. So in 2018, I started a for-profit business called The Mo You Know, because what I found out is, as I was doing all the marketing and the PR for my organization, I acquired these skills, and I'm like, well, I can help other nonprofits and other small business owners and veterans who want to start businesses get started, because I remember how hard it was to get started when you have no capital. You're using your own personal funds, because you just got to do what you got to do. So I have a heart for those people, because I want to see everybody win. So like I said, I love social media, And like I said, I help people run their social media pages. You know, I help design content. And I also do public relations for entrepreneurs, because when you're in business, you know, you want the media attention. You want people has to know you. I tell people all the time, no one can buy anything from you if they don't know you. And in business, whether it's nonprofit or for-profit, the nonprofit, you know, you're selling your services or your programs, and for-profit, you know, you're really selling you or your products. But no matter if you're running a for-profit or a nonprofit, people have to know you. You have to have customers. You have to have clients, you know, and so a lot of times you need sponsors, you know, you just need people to know you, to know what you do and how you do it. So I tell people my job is to make sure that people who need you know you. So that's, you know, what I do for most, the Mo You Know.
So what is the name of your social media and marketing company?
The Mo You Know. So my name is, my middle name is Monique. So my friends call me Mo. So it's a play off my name. Because everybody used to always like, Mo knows everybody. Now, like, Mo, they're like, you know everything. I'm like, I know everything that Google knows. If Google knows it, I know.
But what you really are is you're a resource for people that may not know, and really, you know, evolution of Mo's Heroes. Yeah. It's all about educating the community.
Absolutely.
Any closing comments or encouraging others to get involved in the veteran community or to check you out online or like
yes, absolutely. So I would love for everyone to follow us on social media at Mo's Heroes. Visit our website, www.mosheroes.org. And most importantly, if you have a veteran in your family or a neighbor, anybody that you know that served, please encourage them to go to the VA to get their benefits started. There's education benefits, there's housing benefits, there's employment benefits, there are health benefits, and the list goes on and on. Every day I'm finding out something new that the VA has, not to mention all of the other veteran services organizations and nonprofits and cities and states, and there are so many resources. I know the VA actually sent the email last night about all the unused state resources that benefits that people don't know about.